Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's an incredible privilege for me to be able to read out the citation for Dr. A.K. Sen Sarma, because this is the
करो ये इसको
Dr. A.K. Sen Sarma Endowment Lecture.
नहीं गया पूरा
Brigadier A.K. Sen Sarma was born at the Limaguri state, TX state of Assam, and did his training, medical college, from the R.G. Kar Medical College, Kolkata. In 1952, he joined the service at the police hospital in Kolkata. In 1953, he joined the Army Medical Corps as a lieutenant. His postgraduate training in surgery was from the AFMC Pune. He later received the FRCS England and the FRCS Edinburgh. He was an eminent surgeon and a surgical gastroenterologist in the Army Medical Service. Dr. Sen Sarma was married to Dr. Urmila Roy, a gynecologist. For his inspirational service to the Army, he was accorded the Ati Vishish Seva Medal by the Honorable President of India, and he retired as a brigadier from the Command Hospital, Kolkata, in the year 1984. He passed away on the 6th of April 2003, leaving behind a rich legacy of practicing surgery with complete integrity and incredible empathy. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Verghese to read out the citation for and introduce.
Thank you. I'm happy to be part of this and to read the citation of Dr. Subhash Varshney. Dr. Subhash Varshney graduated from Gandhi Medical College, Bhopal, with 13 gold medals, topping all the 6 medical colleges of Madhya Pradesh state, along with the Best All-Rounder Award of the medical college. Took advanced training in gastrointestinal and laparoscopic surgery from France and UK. After MS, he earned FRCS from Edinburgh, UK, and fellowships of American College of Surgeons, American College of Gastroenterology, and Academy of Medical Science, and fellowship of Indian Association of Gastrointestinal Endosurgeons and Association of Colorectal Surgeons of India. Dr. Varshney established the first department of gastrointestinal surgery and DNB GI surgery program of MP State at Bhopal Memorial Hospital and Research Center. Later, he established the Siddhanta Red Cross Super Specialty Hospital in Bhopal in 2015, where he is the medical director and in charge. He was the first to start the liver transplant in Madhya Pradesh state in 2016. He was first to start a radiofrequency ablation for tumors in India. He was also the first to establish endoscopic ultrasound and GI physiology lab in MP state. He also works as professor and head of the GI surgery department, Allen Medical College and JK Hospital, Bhopal. He was examiner of Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh 2004 to 2014, president of Association of Colorectal Surgeons of India from 2011 to 2012. Dr. Varshney has delivered 2 orations and of ACRCA and 2 orations of Association of Surgeons of India in 2009 and 2017. He has also delivered 2 orations of MPASI and 1 oration of MPISG. He was member of NEET committee of MCA from 2010 to 2011. He has more than 120 publications and 180 presentations at the national and international level, and 6 chapters in various textbooks. He has been awarded dozens of awards for the social work and contribution to the medical field by various national bodies and organizations. The president and the members of the executive committee of ASI, on behalf of the entire membership of the association, feel proud to award the prestigious A.K. Sen Sarma Endowment Lecturer 2020 to Dr. Subhash Varshney. Thank you.
Chairman, sir, and dear colleagues. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I deliver Dr. A.K. Sen Sarma Endowment Lecture on colorectal tuberculosis. Colorectal tuberculosis is a very old disease worldwide. India has largest pool of tubercular patients in the world. It is very common in developing countries. It has come back with a vengeance due to increase in immunocompromised cases, immigrants population, deteriorating social conditions, and cutbacks in public health services. It can involve any part of GI tract, and the incidence of colorectal tuberculosis is increasing since 1980. Till 1971, only 87 cases of colorectal tuberculosis were reported. Pulmonary cox is associated in less than half the cases, and primary GI tuberculosis is seen in only 5% of cases. Two-thirds of the patients are young, in the age group of 21 to 40 years, with a slight female preponderance. In a series of 684 GI tuberculosis cases from North India, they found 10.8% cases were of colorectal tuberculosis when they excluded ileocecal tuberculosis. 54% had stricture, 39% had colitis, and 9% had polypoidal growth. Complications like perforation or fistulae were seen in less than 20% cases. In a study from South India of 50 cases over
Lights are not visible, sir.
So in another study from South India of about 50 cases, they found that histology was positive in 40% cases and ESR was raised in 80%. The most common symptom was abdominal pain in about 90%. Mass was found in 60%, weight loss in 75%, and fever and diarrhea was seen in 55%. Mostly they were ileocecal tuberculosis, about 60% cases, and pancolitis was seen in only 4%. Endoscopic biopsies should be taken multiply from edge of ulcer, and the early lesions will not show caseation or characteristic granulomas. In another study of colorectal tuberculosis and comparing for various histology and cultures, it was found that in about 80% of the cases, histology could be positive, and in culture, only 50% of the cases were positive. In a meta-analysis of 6 series of GI tuberculosis, the incidence of colorectal tuberculosis was about 12.4%. Ileocecal tuberculosis was most common, followed by transverse colon and descending colon. It was multifocal in about 30 to 40% cases. One needs to have a high index of suspicion for diagnosis of colorectal tuberculosis. In a series of 240 cases of lower GI bleed, only 3% had colorectal tuberculosis. If you look at all the cases of intestinal obstruction, about 15 to 20% cases could be due to tuberculosis, but only 6% of the large intestinal obstruction would be from colorectal tuberculosis. The bacteria reach the GI tract through either ingestion of infected food or primary or the milk products, which is a primary route, or hematogenous spread, or could be due to ingestion of infected sputum, which is a secondary tuberculosis, or it could be a direct spread from contagious lymph node or organ. Initially, it was believed that most of the cases of colorectal tuberculosis are due to reactivation, but DNA fingerprinting have shown that only 40% of the cases are reinfection. Most colorectal tuberculosis is due to Mycobacteria tuberculosis and not Mycobacteria bovis. And Mycobacteria avium intracellular are generally seen in HIV positive patients. So the lesion would be ulcerative in about 60%, hypertrophic in 10%, and ulcero-hypertrophic in 30%, which is mainly seen in ileocecal tuberculosis. Ulcerative is more virulent form, and 75% of extrapulmonary tuberculosis are AFB negative. Mantoux test, as we discussed, is positive in more than 75% cases. Ulcerative lesions are generally seen in malnourished, and hypertrophic lesions are seen in well-nourished patients. The histology could be positive in maximum up to 80% and culture in about 40 to 50%. The pathology is tubercular granuloma, initially in mucosa and submucosa, Ulcers are superficial, transverse, they form girdle ulcers and strictures. Patients with strictures have end arteritis obliterans or occlusion of vasa recta, and therefore there is generally no massive bleeding when the stricture has formed. Ulcerated lesions do have hypervascularity. So classically on histology, we see caseating granuloma. The other features are confluent granulomas, hyalization, and there is surrounding inflammation. No caseation would be seen if the patient has received antibiotics or anti-tubercular treatment or in early stages of colorectal tuberculosis. This is a typical caseation which is seen. These are Langerhans giant cells. Immunological test, IgM and IgG mycobacterium antibodies by ELISA tests are of no value in clinical practice nowadays. Real-time PCR for mycobacteria DNA from the lesion only suggests that the bacteria or the particle of the bacteria is present, not necessarily the active disease. So we have to consider clinical signs, symptoms, and other tests are also interpreted as a corroborative evidence. ADA with a cutoff value of 33 units per liter, the sensitivity is about 100%, specificity 97%, with the accuracy of diagnosis in 98%. ADA could be normal in HIV positive patients, and it could be falsely high in some malignancy cases. The quantiferon TB Gold was a long standard for latent tuberculosis detection. It has no impact due to BCG vaccination in the past, but nowadays it is not recommended. Gene expert, also called CBNAT, can be done on fluid or tissue. The result can be done in as fast as 2 hours with a specificity of 100% and sensitivity of more than 98%. We have to differentiate colorectal tuberculosis from Crohn's colitis. So there would be caseating granulomas, confluent granulomas, or the surrounding mucosa. There will be inflammation in tubercular patients, while in Crohn's, the granulomas would be smaller, microgranulomas, and surrounding mucosa would be normal. Mesenchymal stem cell markers CD73 are expressed more in tuberculosis, and they are absent in granulomas of Crohn's disease. And also fibrosis is seen more in tuberculosis than Crohn's disease. So confirmation of colorectal tuberculosis, the histology, culture, or all the tests which we can do up to 80% maximum, we would definitely get some classical histology or culture positive. Rest of the tests, MANTU, ZSR, quantiferon, real-time PCR, ADA, gene expert, they are all supportive and suggestive. And in absence of confirmatory test, diagnosis is made by combining clinical signs, symptoms with the supportive tests. The clinical findings, most common, the symptoms are not very old, generally less than a year. There is weight loss, abdominal pain. It would be colicky if the lumen is compromised. It would be dull continuous if there is a lymph node mass. Low-grade fever, moderate diarrhea or malabsorption can also be seen. Hematochezia is seen in about 30% cases of colorectal cancer. In radiological studies, barium enemas, which is rarely done nowadays, we used to see inverted umbrella sign or the Fleischner sign. It is a wide gaping of ileocecal valve with a narrow ileum. Conical cecum is seen when it is shrunken and pulled up due to fibrosis of the mesocolon. A string sign, persistent narrow stream of barium is seen. Persisting stenosis, localized stenosis opposite to ileocecal valve with a round cecum and dilated terminal ileum. This is here you can see terminal ileum is pictured, and we can also see conical cecum which is pulled up. This is a typical stricture which we see on barium enema studies. This is a tubercular ulcerated cecal mass. On ultrasound, you can get associated ascites, lymphadenopathy, bowel wall thickening, which could be uniform or concentric. A pseudo kidney sign, ileocecal part is pulled up in the subhepatic region, can also be appreciated. CT scan can pick up ulceration or nodality in mucosa, circumferential wall thickening or narrowing. Complications like perforation, abscess, or obstructions in fistulae can be seen. The ascites can be seen, and ascites generally has high protein. This is a typical finding on a CT scan, which we can see. FDG PET, if there is a cold tubercular abscess, there is a mild to moderate FDG uptake. So in India, whenever we are doing FDG PET scan, there is some false positive uptake of FDG. But generally the uptake is less than 4.5 SUV, and we can differentiate with the malignancies. Mucosal nodules on colonoscopies can be seen, which is pink in color with little friability. The ulcer seams are generally discrete. They are small or long. Intervening mucosa is generally abnormal or hypervascular, and diffuse colonic involvement is seen in about 4% of cases. Here we can see a polypoidal mass and of the tuberculosis, which is vascular. This is a typical stricture circumferential ulcer of intestinal colon. Ileocecal tuberculosis is most common because there is a physiological stasis of enteral material, and it is avid water and electrolytes are absorbed there. There is a very little digestive activity, and therefore the enteral content remains in contact with the mucosa for a long time, and so they are in long contact with bacilli also. Rectal tuberculosis, the incidence is low, 4.5% of all GI tract tuberculosis, and generally present as rectal bleeding or hematochezia with constitutional symptoms in three-fourths of patients and constipation in about 40%. Differential diagnosis of colorectal tuberculosis or rectal TB is generally cancer, radiation, colitis, SURS, amoebic ulcer, recurrent rectal suppression, NSAID ulcers, inflammatory bowel disease, or pseudomembranous colitis. Now the management, the medical management, when we are not sure between tuberculosis and Crohn's, try to withhold steroids for the inflammatory bowel disease. In ulcerative lesions or partially occluding hyperplastic lesions, ATT could be curative in three-fourths of the patient. ATT should be given at least 6 months and preferably 9 to 12 months. During first 2 months, 4 drugs should be used and later 3 drugs. We should monitor ESR, which should become normal at the end of the treatment. Supportive treatment should be given. We should watch for toxicities and always do liver function in adult patients after 10 days and 1 month. The surgical management had 3 phases. The phase 1 was the early days when effective ATT was not available, so resectional surgeries were thought to be hazardous, and therefore they were doing more of bypass surgery. But then there was complications of blind loop syndrome, recurrent obstruction, or fistula. In the second phase, when there were more effective ATT drugs, radical resection procedures were tried to eradicate local disease, but they were not tolerated well by malnourished patients. So now the third phase, or the recently, what we do, conservative resections. Preoperatively, we try to give ATT for at least 3 weeks. The short strictures up to 2 centimeters with not total occlusion of lumen, we do stricturoplasty. And if there are multiple strictures, long strictures, or complete strictures, only then we do conservative resection, which is generally we only take away the macroscopically abnormal colon, and we do anastomosis in macroscopic normal colon. This is our experience of 148 cases of colorectal cancer over more than 20 years, where mostly were ileocecal tuberculosis, and you can see that 98 patients underwent surgery. Ascending colon, we had 14 cases and 11 underwent surgery. Transverse colon, 11 cases, 10 underwent surgery. Descending colon, there were 6. Surgery was required in 5. Sigmoid colon, all required surgery. In rectum, out of 6, 4 required surgery. So in summary, I would say that most of the publications on colorectal tuberculosis are after 1990s. The publications are mainly from Asia. In the Western Hemisphere, the disease is mainly in emigrants from endemic areas. Adults represent the majority of cases. The disease is slightly more prevalent in females. HIV infection is a main risk factor. Pulmonary tuberculosis is not an essential association seen in less than half the cases. Colorectal tuberculosis still is a great mimicker, so one should always have a high index of suspicion. Early diagnosis and initiating ATT and surgical treatment are essential to prevent morbidity and mortality. Histology, culture, molecular diagnostic can reach diagnosis nowadays in more than 80% cases. In rest cases, therapeutic trial of ATT for 2 months may be tried if clinical signs and symptoms suspect tuberculosis. In early cases of pathology, absence of obstruction or any complication, medical therapy is curative in up to 3/4 of cases. And surgery is reserved for patients with complete obstruction, multiple strictures, when complication has developed or diagnosis is in doubt, in spite of all tests and ATT trials. Surgery is generally conservative resection.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent lecture on the colorectal tuberculosis.